Hi guys, welcome to the 4th episode of Offbeat. Today is a very special episode for me because I have with me my brother, Prabhat Rao, a fantastic Hindustani vocalist. As I said, he's like a brother to me, so it is I'm really happy to have him with me actually today because he is a musician that has grown a lot, and I want you all to see that living in London, he has become such a budding and one of the best vocalists actually in London that we have at the moment. So I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to know from you first, how were you initialized into music? And who was your driving force into kind of going into Hindustani vocal?
Okay, so I started learning music as a child. We had a musical atmosphere in the house because everyone is passionate about music. No one's a professional musician. My grandmother used to teach at home. But yeah, there was no professional musician really in my family. So I was initiated into Carnatic music, being a South Indian and having lived in the South. Then when we moved to the North, I also learned Hindustani music over there, learned a bit of ghazals, Rabindra Sangeet, piano. And so my dad was very passionate that I kind of explored various different genres of music before I made my choice as to what I wanted to study in more detail. So that's how I started my music.
Okay, and why Khayal? And why not Carnatic music? Because obviously you were born in the South.
Yeah. So I had to make a choice when I was I think I was 14 when I decided. So one thing is both the vocal technique for Carnatic music and Khayal is completely different. And at 13 and 14 I was expected to start to improvise. And that's when I found it difficult to switch between both the styles and I had to make a choice. So the improvisational aspect of Khayal was something that really inspired me, and the scope for expressing yourself in Khayal. I mean, the word Khayal itself means imagination. So I just felt very free, and I felt that I could be myself in Khayal.
I think this will be useful for our viewers to know. What are the main kind of differences between Carnatic music and Hindustani music, if you were to sum it up in a few points?
So the key thing is Carnatic music is composition based, and so the composition is given a lot more importance and forms a bigger part of the recital than in Hindustani music. So the improvisational element within a composition is less.
Okay.
Compared to the Hindustani Khayal genre, where the composition is a small part and the improvisation is the bigger part. But even in Carnatic music, there is Ragam, Tanam, Pallavi, which is like Alap, Jod, and then a composition, essentially an equivalent to that. But even in that, the structure of improvisation is a lot more rigid. But I guess in Hindustani music, it is not as rigid.
Okay, wow. And what about the use of tal in both the styles of singing? I don't know much about it actually. So would you like to tell us anything that's kind of different? So with tabla, like we know, tabla is the backbone to anything that we do, whether it's vocal, instrumental, kathak, any type of Hindustani classical style.
Yeah.
The tabla is the backbone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we base our performance on.
Yeah.
And then after that, we give the tabla also time to improvise according to that, whatever style that they are accompanying. So with vocal, it's a different type of accompaniment. With sarod or sitar, it's a different type of accompaniment. So what about Carnatic music? What's the kind of difference with that?
In the accompanying, I mean, both, let's say Carnatic percussionists do get a section to do a bit of a solo kind of piece.
Is that the Tani
Avartanam.
Right.
And in a very different format, we do provide an opportunity for our percussionists, for our tabla player to improvise as well. But the key difference is the tabla plays a theka. So we know our tal cycle by listening to the sound of the tabla bowls. Whereas in Carnatic music, the mridangam plays essentially the composition, not the theka.
But there is a specific tal that you're singing to.
There is a tal which is being maintained using your tali and ginti, by your counts. But the mridangam doesn't play a theka as such.
Okay.
So if you were to mute the vocalist and just listen to the mridangam of a composition, you would listen, you would essentially hear the words of the composition in the mridangam
that's very interesting.
rather than a regular beat cycle.
So within that, is that also quite fixed, or no, they improvise in that as well?
There is improvisation in that.
There.
But the mridangam player should be aware of the composition to be able to play along with it.
To be able to play along.
Whereas a tabla player needs to be strong in teen tal to accompany any teen tal bandish.
Right.
So there's a slight difference.
Okay, so that's more, they can improvise, but it's improvisation based on the composition that you're singing.
Yes.
Okay, that's very interesting.
That's from my observations.
So whatever you know.
From what I know.
Okay, that's really interesting actually, because we haven't actually done an interview with any Carnatic musician, so it's nice to have you, because you know both sides of it. The next question I want to ask you is very important to me, because we're both based in the UK.
Yeah.
And we both do go to India, but we live here.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that we're trying our best to become the best musicians and dancers that we can become. So there are people here and back home in India who say that if you're abroad, you can't become that kind of an artist. You can't reach the top, as they say it. But what do you think about that? Because I would say personally that that's not true at all. It just depends on yourself, and it depends on your guru and how much time you spend with that person. But what is your experience on that?
So one is absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. So your relationship with your guru is key to how you learn, how you progress, what your attitude to practice is, what your attitude on stage is. All that is something you learn from your guru. And it really doesn't matter whether it's in India or here. If you meet the right guru, you can be anywhere and that relationship can develop. It doesn't mean that just because you're in India, you can have that, because if the guru is not right for you, then even living in India and spending the whole day in your guru's house for 10 years at a stretch is not really going to lead you anywhere. So the relationship is key, not the location.
Right.
Yeah. So that is something that I've been very lucky to have with your mother over here in the last 12 years. The other thing I would say is with technology now moving on, it's very easy to be inspired, because you hear, so if you want that atmosphere of what's going on in India, all you need to do is log into YouTube or Facebook. So if you want to see what the top lineup in Savai Gandhar has been and what they have performed, you just need to log into Facebook to see it.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. So if you want to create that environment sat far away from the land where the music originated, you can find avenues to do that, to inspire
and
yourself.
also, I would add here that it's very important to have best of both worlds. And I think it's better to have that in a sense.
Absolutely.
Like I said, we both go back to India and you're performing and I go back and I perform, and you stay there with your family a little bit and then you come back here. And it's a completely different environment. And so you get two different environments that kind of helps your music.
Absolutely.
In many different ways. So each environment is good in its own way.
Yeah, you've got to take the positives from
Like from
both
each
the
side.
places and making
I
this
mean, I asked this question because a lot of my friends back in India ask me that, do you not find it difficult to kind of maintain this when you're over there? And I just say that, no, not really, because firstly, I have the passion to do it. And second of all, I have a guru who is incredibly, who's amazing. If I didn't have that guru, I wouldn't be where I am. And thirdly, I get the best of both worlds to kind of be going back and forth from that.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important to kind of put out there.
Yeah.
Next, I want to ask about your talim. So when you sit with a rag, or you go to your guru and you're learning a new rag, what is your approach towards that specific rag? And for example, when you're doing Vistar, what do you think in your head? What's your process? And how do you think that, okay, this is how I'm going to, not structure, but maybe, we can call it structuring. How do you structure your Vistars? Or how do you deal with a new rag?
Okay. So firstly, at this point, one thing is you have to surrender to your guru. So when you go sit in front of your guru, you can't go there with expectations to say, oh, I'm going to learn this, or I'm going to learn this bandish. You've just got to go and sit there. Right. And whatever your guru gives you, you take. So that should be the first, I think, attitude of any student if they're going to learn from a guru. In terms of what my talim has been with your mom, we start a rag usually by exploring the notes, the chalan of the rag, get a basic understanding of how you walk between the notes, how you tie them together, where you can stand, where you cannot stand, which notes are the most important. The basic grammar of the rag is covered first. And then I don't think it's been very straightforward. Sometimes she's taught me the Madhyalaya or Drut Bandish first. Sometimes she's taught me the Vilambit Bandish first. It basically depends on what she is inspired by that day. But in spite of which Bandish I've learned or what lay we've been in, Vistar has always been very, very important to Chandrimaji and her approach in teaching me. So a lot of time was spent in Vistar with as much focus and attention as possible to how you show the beauty of a certain note in a certain rag. What are all the various routes you can take to approach that note? Which are the other notes that you focus less on to highlight the beauty of this particular note? So some of it has been singing, some of it has been discussion in my class time, some of it has been suggestions from her to go and listen to a particular recording.
And discussion plays a big role, right?
Totally. I mean, there's been lessons where I've gone and we haven't actually tuned the tanpura. I've just sat there for an hour and spoken to her.
But that in itself is a big learning experience.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So living here, you get 1 hour with your guru a week or 2 hours or whatever that limited time is. You can't go there and say that, oh, in this 1 hour, I'm going to learn the whole Vinambit Bandish of Yaman and take that, go home and practice. No.
Right.
That's not going to work. You go there and you just sit. Whatever you get, you take and you practice. That should be the attitude.
Yeah, that's very, very important. I think going from that, I'd like to talk about your performances. So when you go on stage, what's your kind of preparation before you go on stage? And when you go on stage, what's your goal? What do you want to portray to the audience? What do you want the audience to go back with after they've heard you?
Okay. So in terms of preparation, obviously I'll do my vocal warm-up throughout the day, really, not just in the green room. I prefer the voice to be warm and kind of ready rather than kind of not ready. So I do that to kind of get myself in the zone. I think the other things that do also help is the time I take to tune the tanpuras or just be in the sur helps me switch off from everything else that might have led up to going to the concert, be it the traffic or whatever. So once I'm in the zone, once I'm on stage and about to start a rag, the key thing is I invoke the rag. I ask the rag to take over me. I ask the rag to completely drown me in itself. And only then I can experience the beauty of that particular rag. My aim at that point, from a personal point of view, is to just enjoy the moment,
the performance.
to just enjoy the beauty of it, to enjoy the accuracy of the sur, to enjoy the accuracy or the playfulness of the percussion. So it's just to enjoy it. From an audience point of view, with everything that is going on at the moment, the fact that they've taken an hour or hour and a half to come and listen to me is a big deal. So I completely respect that. And I bow down to the audience to, that they made this a priority rather than doing anything else. So that's the first thing to recognize. And if they've come here, then the least I can do is for that 1 or 1.5 hours, inspire them to such an extent that they forget everything else, even if it's just for that time. Yeah? And then when they go back into their normal lives. But if for that 1 hour, I've been able to make them forget their other business, then I think the purpose of that performance is achieved from my point of view.
Fantastic. So I think that's wonderful because most people would say that, I really want the people to enjoy my performance, and along with that, I want them to think that I'm a fantastic singer, and that's amazing to hear from you, that the first thing for you is to drown yourself into what you're singing, and to really enjoy what you've learned, and then with responsibility to deliver that.
Absolutely.
Going from that, in my last interview with two, I think one was Deboshi Bhattacharya. He's a fantastic singer, I'm sure you know of him.
Yes.
And Devanjan Bhattacharya, who's a fantastic sarod player. I spoke to them about an issue that's currently quite big in India, according to me, which is that all the concerts, at least in Calcutta, Delhi, even Mumbai as well, the concerts are free, without any tickets. And this was done because people were not buying tickets and coming to the concerts. Not enough people were attending them. So people thought, okay, fine, let's get rid of the tickets. So then it will be free, and so more people will turn up. Now, actually, the opposite thing has happened. Even without the tickets, not many people are turning up to Indian classical music and dance concerts. Now, I know what the scenario is here. Here, most concerts are ticketed.
Yeah.
And you yourself have experience of that because you yourself organize in Spotlight, which is a fantastic initiative, to give platform to young and upcoming artists. So congratulations for that, because there's not many people doing what he's doing sitting in the UK. So that's fantastic. But what would you say about that? Why do you think that is? And why do you think it's not like that here? Because we know that it really isn't like that here. We've performed in halls that have full audience with, £10, £15, £20 tickets.
So I can't really comment on why people in India don't go in spite of it being free. I don't know. I really don't know. What I can only think is that anything that's happening near you or that is from around where you are is sometimes taken for granted. So if you were to have a Western pop concert in India with a 2,000 rupee ticket, you would have a full stadium.
Oh, absolutely.
You would have a full stadium.
Justin Bieber performed in Mumbai and the tickets were outrageously expensive.
You would have a full stadium. But a style that is developed, born in India, is maybe not considered cool. Maybe the audience doesn't have the patience to sit through the vistar and actually bear the vistar, so to say, because people want to listen to the fiery tans or when the tabla is going to improvise, but who's got the patience to listen to the alap? And by the time the artist has got to the middle of the alap, they've already judged and switched off that, oh, this is boring music.
This is boring music.
So maybe that's the attitude of the audience there. Whereas over here, firstly, there is a lot of respect for music from any part of the world. I feel. And there is a lot of respect for diversity. There is funding available for projects from a diverse background, which also helps. So I think that's a major reason why we have fuller audiences here. But also I feel that it's the artist's responsibility to expose the audience and make them understand what the style is without diluting it.
Without diluting it.
Yeah.
And we speak about this a lot, actually.
Yeah. So
yeah.
don't give up the Vilambit section just because people don't understand it. The only reason, Royal Albert Hall fills up every concert, of the BBC Proms or any kind of prestigious orchestra performing is because those pieces have been maintained the same way the composers have composed them, and that is being respected. And the fact that it's not diluted is actually appreciated.
This is very important. And the other thing to note here is that here they give slots to the Western classical, kind of music, to their roots. Whereas in India on TV, you will hardly find a slot on TV where Indian classical music and dance gets an hour to showcase the roots and the tradition of that country. And even if we do, it's either at 6 in the morning when no one's awake, or at 12 at night when everyone's sleeping on a weekday.
Yeah.
So, these are kind of things to keep in mind, and I think this is why I've mainly done this show. Because I feel like this is almost a better platform for these interviews to go on to.
Absolutely.
Because TV is never going to do anything about it, unfortunately, in India. I hope that something will happen. Because for the next generation coming, so us, I hope that we can do something to improve that.
Absolutely. But like you say, Saberi, the fact that you're doing this and the fact that promoting oneself has become easier, so you don't actually have to depend on TV.
Absolutely.
Create your own YouTube channel.
Because you have other ways to do it.
Put your things up. Hopefully, kind of a joint effort from various people from around the world, India, abroad, together will improve the kind of audience perception.
Well, we hope so, and I would only encourage everybody else to do, take initiatives. Whether it's a talk show like I'm doing, or whether it's in Spotlight like Prabhat has started, where he invites young budding artists to perform. Like I said, with ticketed, it's a ticketed concert, and many people turn up and they appreciate it. And they really understand that this is something very precious to our land. It's very precious to India.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the most important thing is.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear something from you. I always hear you. But I think everybody else would love to hear something from you. Anything that you would like to sing for us. Anything at all. Whatever you think.
Okay.
Bandish and so beautifully sung.
Thank you.
Another important question, the questions keep coming to my head now. The importance of tal in our music. And when you are, during your training, during your talim, what has been the importance of tal? We all know it's important, but really, I think sometimes we take that for granted as well, and we may not concentrate on that as much as we should. Because, like I said, it's the backbone to anything. Tabla is the backbone to anything, and we can't do anything without it. So, what do you think is the importance of tal, and how do you I don't know how to word this, but how do you keep that at the same standard as you're singing or as your ragdari or as anything else?
So, from a vocal training point of view, I think we're taught the importance of the sum and the respect that we give to the purity of the sur, I would say, is the same respect we give to the accuracy of the sum and how we approach the sum, how we go home at the end of every avartan. So that has been a key point in kind of the tal side of the talim that I've had. And I've also been taught not to play with tal, not to take that as an aspect where you can just show off your ability. That's not the point of rhythm. You can do that to a certain extent, but to actually approach rhythm from a very mature and grown-up point of view, just doing fast variations just because you can, and arriving at a certain point in the rhythmic cycle doesn't actually show that much musical kind of maturity.
Right.
What shows your maturity is how simplistically you can kind of break those ideas down and present them with kind of more, what's the right word? With more sophistication.
And grace as
and
well.
Grace. Yeah. And how you use tal in that aspect.
In Kathak as well, it's the same, because at the beginning of a Kathak recital, so after you've done the Vandana, etc., you do an upaj. So the upaj is complete improvisation, and it's on whatever tal you're doing, and it's not to rush into anything, or it's not to show skill. It's to show the sense of space within the tal. So within those 16 beats, there are 4 divisions. But what's between the 4 divisions, and what's between each of the kind of matras, each of the beats? So it's the sense of the space.
Absolutely.
I think.
So that's the key kind of skill, I would say, in tal.
In tal,
rather than learning big tihais and presenting them at a very fast pace.
Right, so, and I think in a vocal recital anyways, that's the first thing that comes.
Absolutely.
Because the first thing you're doing is you're doing a vistar. And that vistar is not a vistar if it sounds like a tan, obviously.
There is a space for tans. I mean, a recital would be incomplete without the tans. But if 70% of your recital is filled with tans, then I feel that an important part of your musical maturity has been not showcased.
And I guess a vistar is kind of the journey through the rag. Right? So if you don't do a vistar, then the audience or yourself, you don't get that satisfaction of being able to show the rag completely. Am I right to say that?
Absolutely. And if the vistar is not strong, the beauty of the tans is not seen either.
Will not come. Right.
So you've got to bring the rag alive first.
Absolutely.
To then show how it moves when it's faster.
So this is really important for anybody, who's just started as a vocalist or even an instrumentalist to hear this kind of thing. Because it's so important to understand that speed is important, and it will always be important. But before speed, there are certain things that you have to gather and you have to kind of understand to be able to reach that clarity in speed as well. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And the last question I want to ask you, and I ask this to everyone, is apart from your performance, of course you're a performing artist, but apart from your performance, like I said, you're doing In Spotlight, which is wonderful. But what other kind of ideas do you have to encourage our generation or your younger generation, the generation that comes after you? Because at the moment I'm seeing in every festival, in India or here, to be very honest. It's always the same artists who are performing. But there are so many talented and capable young musicians and dancers, who are hardly getting a platform.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do to kind of improve that situation? And what would you say to, I don't know, just to kind of address this? It's not a problem, but I think it's an issue.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think In Spotlight is a very, very small initiative in the grand scheme of things. So within my means, whatever I'm able to do to host those 3 or 4 concerts a year and provide that opportunity for pure classical music to be showcased to audiences here, I'm able to do that. But apart from that, I think if we were to address the bigger issue around the established artists being featured at the big concerts and the up-and-coming artists not even being considered for those opportunities, all I would say is that the up-and-coming artists have got to stick at it, because if one is really talented and they've got content, it's just a matter of time for that to be recognized. And one day or another, that recognition will happen. So from an artist's point of view, we should just keep working at it. But from a promoter's point of view, I don't think promoters can survive themselves if they keep promoting the bigger artists, because one day or another, the audience will want freshness. So promoters have got to also wake up and listen to the amazing artists who might not have record labels, who might not have YouTube channels with 15,000 users, but who are posting short video clips on Facebook, on their Twitter accounts, on their own YouTube channels. So don't be afraid to click on those links and actually hear them. You might only hear them for 3 minutes, but that's enough to actually judge whether they're good. So click on those links, promoters.
Yes. And this is what I keep coming back to at the end of Offbeat. This is the main reason for doing Offbeat, because I want to bring to all of you, the younger generation of musicians and dancers who are working hard, and they're working relentlessly to do music well, firstly, but secondly to get a platform, because at the end of the day this is performing arts, and it's called performing arts for a reason, so that we get the chance to perform. And if we don't get that chance, it's a matter of time that, like what you said, it's just a matter of time that people are going to get tired of listening to the same people. They will want to hear freshness. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And this is something that I say at the end of every single interview, but I think I'll keep saying it until the end of Offbeat. So thank you so much for being with us. Offbeat, do email us at offbeatask@gmail.com. And I will see you at the next episode of Offbeat very soon. And to finish, I'd like to ask Prabhat to sing one more for us so that we can finish on a very musical note. So off to you, and thank you very much for watching.